Boundaries are the lines drawn, not in sand, but in steel, meant to hold firm when others test them. They are not merely requests. They are declarations of who you are and what you will not tolerate. When someone pushes against your boundaries, they are not just challenging your words. They are daring your strength. And when those boundaries hold, unyielding, unshaken, they learn the lesson they never wanted. You are not someone who can be moved. The first test of a boundary is always subtle. A joke that goes too far, a favor taken for granted, a request that edges into demand. They push, waiting for the first crack, the first sign of weakness. But you've learned that weakness is not in saying no. It's in failing to enforce it. Each time you held your line, their arrogance faltered. Boundaries are not walls of separation. They are fortresses of self-respect. And you've fortified yours with the lessons of 1,000 betrayals. To set a boundary is to value yourself above the comfort of others. Many see boundaries as a cage, a limitation, a rejection. But for you, they are freedom, the space in which you can exist without compromise. Those who challenged your boundaries expected to win, to force you to yield. Instead, they encountered a resolve stronger than their manipulation. And in that moment, they realized your strength was not negotiable. Every boundary teaches a lesson, but the hardest lesson is learned by those who thought they could break you. Boundaries are mirrors, reflecting not only your worth, but their disregard for it. When someone tests your limits, they reveal their true intentions. You didn't just enforce your boundaries. You exposed their arrogance, their entitlement, their inability to respect what they could not control. Boundaries do more than protect. They illuminate. There's power in the word no, a power many underestimate until they hear it from you. A boundary is not an apology, not a compromise, not a discussion. It is a line drawn with the full force of your self-worth behind it. Those who sought to test your boundaries expected hesitation, but you gave them certainty. The strength of your no was their undoing, a reminder that some battles are lost before they begin. Boundaries force others to confront their own lack of them. Those who push against your lines do so because they have none of their own, because their lives are a tangle of blurred edges and unspoken expectations. When your boundaries held, they were forced to face their own chaos. It wasn't just your strength that shook them. It was the mirror your boundaries held up, showing them everything they lacked. Respect is earned, but boundaries demand it. When you stood firm, you taught those who tested you that your respect is not given lightly, that it cannot be taken or demanded. It must be deserved. Boundaries are the currency of self-worth, and you refused to let anyone cheapen their value. Every line you drew was a statement. I will not sacrifice my peace for your comfort, my strength for your convenience. To enforce a boundary is to choose yourself in a world that constantly demands otherwise. It is an act of rebellion, of self-preservation, of quiet defiance. Those who underestimated your boundaries thought they were challenging you, but they were challenging something much greater, your sense of self. And as their attempts faltered, their lessons became clear. You are untouchable, unyielding, unstoppable. The strongest boundaries are not those built out of anger or fear, but those built out of love, for yourself, for your time, for your energy. Each boundary you set was an act of self-respect, a declaration that your worth is not up for negotiation. Those who pushed against you thought they were strong enough to break you, but they only ended up breaking themselves. Boundaries are not barriers. They are lessons, and you became the greatest teacher. Your boundaries didn't just protect you, they transformed you. Each line you drew was a step closer to the person you were meant to be, a person who refuses to be defined by the expectations or demands of others. And as you rose, stronger and freer than ever, those who had tested you were left with a lesson they could never unlearn. In the rush of love and excitement, we forget to set boundaries, and that's where the foundation of our self-respect starts cracking. Most people are too numb to realize this. They give away their power too early. Love is intoxicating, isn't it? It sweeps you up, dulls your senses, and clouds your judgment. In its rush, boundaries feel unnecessary, even cruel. The heart says yes before the mind has time to consider the cost. It whispers that limits are unneeded, that giving all of yourself is the only way to love fully. But in the midst of that surrender, the cracks begin to form. What feels like devotion is often the start of self-erasure, a slow relinquishing of power disguised as sacrifice. The first sacrifice is subtle. A skipped boundary here, a quiet compromise there. It feels harmless, even noble. You tell yourself it's just for now, that love is worth bending a little. But every boundary you ignore chips away at your foundation, leaving you vulnerable. The cracks spread, and before long, what was once solid begins to crumble. Most never notice until it's too late, until the weight of what they've given becomes unbearable. Self-respect is not taken. It is given away, often without realizing it. The rush of love makes us blind to the subtle imbalances, the moments when we say yes, when we should have said no. In the name of connection, we trade pieces of ourselves, hoping it will make the other person stay. But love, built on sacrifice alone, is a love that demands too much and gives too little in return. It is a love that consumes rather than nourishes. Power is not always stolen. Sometimes it is handed over freely. In love, this transfer feels natural, even necessary. But the price is steep. To give away your power is to lose your voice, your sense of self, your ability to stand firm. Boundaries are not walls. They are the foundation of respect, both for yourself and for the other person. Without them, love becomes a battlefield where only one side holds the weapons. The numbness sets in when the cracks grow too wide to ignore. You tell yourself, this is just how love works. That discomfort and sacrifice are part of the package. But that numbness is your mind's way of hiding the pain, of masking the growing void within you. The heart that once felt so full now feels empty, drained by a love that demanded too much. Boundaries could have saved you, but love made you forget them. Setting boundaries in love feels counterintuitive, almost wrong. You fear it will push the other person away, that limits will be seen as rejection. But boundaries are not barriers. They are acts of self-preservation. They protect the essence of who you are, ensuring that love doesn't come at the cost of your identity. To love without boundaries is to invite chaos, to let someone else dictate the terms of your worth. The rush of love is not an excuse to abandon yourself. It is in those early moments, when emotions run high, that boundaries are most crucial. Love without boundaries is a fire without a hearth. It burns wildly, uncontrollably, until it consumes everything. To set boundaries is not to reject love, but to shape it, to give it a structure that allows it to grow without destruction. Most people only realize the importance of boundaries after the damage is done. The foundation cracks, the walls crumble, and they are left standing in the ruins of what could have been a beautiful love. But for those who learn, who take the pain and transform it into wisdom, boundaries become their armor. They rise from the wreckage stronger, wiser, and unshakable, refusing to let history repeat itself. The ones who push against your boundaries are the ones who fear their own limits. They mistake love for control, passion for possession. Your boundaries expose their insecurity, their inability to love without taking. And when you enforce them, when you refuse to bend, they learn a lesson they never wanted to face. That love cannot thrive without respect, and respect begins with boundaries. If you spend your life sparing people's feelings and feeding their vanity, you get so you can't distinguish what should be respected in them. The endless game of sparing feelings is a slow erosion of your authenticity. Every time you tiptoe around someone's ego, you chip away at your own. You train yourself to prioritize their comfort over your integrity, to shield their vanity from the sharp edges of honesty. But the cost of this kindness is steep, for it blinds you to who they truly are. What deserves respect is lost in the fog of their carefully curated image, leaving you grasping at shadows. Vanity is a hungry beast, devouring all who feed it. The more you offer, the more it demands. It thrives on the lies you tell to keep the peace, the silence you maintain to avoid conflict. But each indulgence strengthens its hold until you are no longer sparing feelings. You are surrendering your own. To feed someone's vanity is to starve your authenticity, to trade your voice for their comfort. And in that silence, you lose the ability to discern what truly matters. Respect is earned, not given freely to those who demand it. But in the act of sparing feelings, you create a false respect, a hollow reverence for those who do not deserve it. You inflate their ego at the expense of your integrity, convincing yourself that this is the price of harmony. But harmony built on lies is no harmony at all. It is a fragile illusion, destined to shatter under the weight of reality. The line between kindness and dishonesty is razor thin. To spare feelings is to tread that line, often slipping into the territory of deceit. You tell yourself it's for their sake, that the lie is kinder than the truth. But in doing so, you rob them of growth, of the chance to confront their flaws and rise above them. Sparing feelings is not kindness. It is cowardice, a refusal to face the discomfort of honesty. Vanity thrives on those too afraid to confront it. When you feed someone's ego, you enable their delusions, allowing them to believe in a version of themselves that doesn't exist. You create a world where their flaws are hidden, their mistakes overlooked, their arrogance unchecked. And in that world, respect becomes meaningless, a currency devalued by the lies that sustain it. To respect someone is to see them for who they truly are, flaws and all. But sparing feelings obscures that vision, replacing clarity with illusion. You respect the mask, not the person behind it, and in doing so, you deny them the opportunity to earn your admiration. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself. They are about demanding authenticity from others. Without them, respect becomes a hollow gesture, devoid of meaning. Honesty is brutal, but it is the foundation of genuine respect. To spare feelings is to shy away from that brutality, to choose comfort over connection. But true connection requires discomfort. It demands that you confront the parts of someone that make you hesitate. Boundaries are the tools of that confrontation, The lines that say, "I will not compromise my integrity for your comfort." In setting them, you force others to confront themselves, to decide whether they are worthy of respect. The fear of offending others is a chain that binds you to mediocrity. When you prioritize sparing feelings, you surrender your strength, your voice, your authenticity. Boundaries break those chains, reminding you that respect is not about pleasing others. It is about staying true to yourself. And in that authenticity, you find the clarity to distinguish what deserves your respect and what does not. Those who thrive on their vanity fear boundaries, for boundaries expose their need for validation. When you set limits, you force them to face the mirror, to confront the parts of themselves they have hidden behind your kindness. Your boundaries are not just a lesson for them. They are a revelation, a reminder that respect cannot be demanded, only earned. And in that revelation, their vanity crumbles. Toxicity doesn't knock politely on the door. It slips in through the cracks, testing your vigilance. The first offense is always subtle, wrapped in excuses, or disguised as a misunderstanding. But those who prey on others thrive in the silence that follows. The longer you wait, the more ground you surrender, giving them room to dig their claws deeper. The key to breaking this cycle is to act decisively. Cut the cord before their poison spreads. The wait-and-see approach is a survival tactic rooted in hope, but hope is a dangerous distraction. Waiting gives toxicity the time it craves, the opportunity to fortify its position in your life. Each hesitation is an invitation, each second chance a green light. Survivors of manipulation have learned this lesson the hard way, their scars etched with the cost of waiting too long. Waiting isn't kindness, it's permission, a silent agreement to let the harm continue. Intuition is your greatest weapon, sharper than any excuse or justification. The moment something feels wrong, it is. Those who have learned to trust their instincts act with the precision of a blade, cutting ties with surgical exactness. You owe no explanation for protecting yourself, no justification for removing toxicity from your life. To question your intuition is to dull its edge, to let doubt undermine your strength. Trust it, and let it guide you. Toxic people rely on your hesitation, your hope that they might change, your belief that the first offense was a mistake. But change is not their goal. Control is. Addressing their behavior immediately disrupts their game, forcing them to confront boundaries they cannot cross. Every second you wait, every chance you give, is a step closer to their victory. Acting swiftly is not cruelty. It is survival. As your boundaries strengthen, your tolerance for toxicity diminishes. What once slid under the radar now sets off alarms. The wait time grows shorter. The need for explanation fades. You learn to act without hesitation, cutting ties before the damage becomes irreversible. Boundaries are not just about protection. They are about empowerment, about reclaiming your time, your energy, your life. To address toxicity is to confront the discomfort of conflict. But conflict is far less painful than betrayal. By waiting, you trade one discomfort for another, and the cost is always higher. The first offense is not an accident. It is a test, a probe to see how far they can go. Your response to it sets the tone for every interaction that follows. Waiting gives them the advantage. Acting takes it back. Survivors of manipulation are often trained to doubt their instincts, to question their reactions, to give second chances. This training is a trap, a conditioning that leaves you vulnerable to repeated harm. Breaking free from this cycle means trusting yourself enough to act on the first offense. Intuition is not a luxury. It is a necessity, a defense mechanism that sharpens with use. Ignoring it is a betrayal of yourself. Cutting someone off at the first sign of toxicity is not ruthless. It is responsible. It sends a clear message. Your boundaries are not negotiable. Toxic people fear those who act decisively because decisiveness is power. They rely on hesitation, on second chances, on your willingness to question yourself. By acting swiftly, you deny them the opportunity to exploit you, forcing them to confront their own shortcomings. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they are about enforcing it. Toxicity thrives in ambiguity, in the gray areas where your boundaries are unclear. By addressing toxicity immediately, you make your lines crystal clear. There is no room for negotiation, no space for manipulation. Your boundaries become a fortress, impenetrable and unyielding. And, as those who test them fall away, you stand stronger than ever. Every time you act on your intuition, every time you refuse to wait, you strengthen your boundaries. Toxic people cannot survive in the presence of such strength. Their games rely on your doubt, your hesitation, your silence. If you want to live an authentic, meaningful life, you need to master the art of disappointing and upsetting others, hurting feelings, and living with the reality that some people just won't like you. It may not be easy, but it's essential if you want your life to reflect your deepest desires, values, and needs. Authenticity demands sacrifice. The price is comfort, yours and others. Choosing to live authentically is not a path of harmony, but of conflict. It requires cutting through the veneer of politeness, the false smiles, the need to appease. To live authentically, you must become comfortable with being misunderstood, misjudged, even despised. Every time you choose yourself, you invite someone's disapproval. But that disapproval is freedom. It means you're no longer living for them. Disappointing others is an art, a skill that sharpens over time. The first time you say no, it feels like rebellion. The 100th time, it feels like survival. Every time you refuse to betray yourself for someone else's comfort, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Their anger, their sadness, their judgment. It is not yours to carry. Let them feel it. Let them learn that your boundaries are not just words, but the architecture of your existence. Hurting feelings is inevitable when you stop sacrificing yourself for others. The world conditions us to be agreeable, to say yes, to smile when we'd rather scream. But living authentically means breaking that conditioning. It means saying no without apology, rejecting what doesn't serve you, even when it hurts someone else. Their hurt is temporary, but your betrayal of yourself would be permanent. Choose wisely. Not everyone will like you, and that is your liberation. The need to be liked is a chain that binds you to mediocrity, to a life shaped by others' expectations. When you let go of that need, you unlock your power. Those who dislike you for living authentically are simply showing you their own limitations. Their opinions are not a reflection of your worth, but of their inability to accept what they cannot control. Living authentically is not about being selfish. It is about being true. True to your values, your needs, your desires. It means rejecting the roles others try to force upon you.